Wish I had known about older boats was anything 15 to 20 years old is probably going to need the fuel tank replaced. Bought a nice, clean, older boat, and turns out the fuel tank was pretty deteriorated. Yeah, that is something that you definitely want to check out when buying an older boat. Yeah, as soon as you pass the 20-year range, depending on the make, the model, and the type of fuel tank, yeah, fuel tanks are on the list of something to check. And definitely you want to make sure that it's not going to be a problem, because that's a big hit. If you got to replace a fuel tank, that's not just oh, this is going to cost me $2,000. That's a $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 repair, depending on the boat, the access, the size of the tank, and all the other things that's got to come apart to get into it. So when you start talking about, like, especially center consoles, where you got to take the center console out, you got to take the deck up, you got to pull this tank out, replace all the hoses. Definitely that can change the amount of a boat. Like if you buy a boat for, say, $40,000, and then next thing you know, you got to spend $10,000, $15,000 to replace the fuel tank. Like that is a huge hit, because if you were looking at it like that, you might as well look at your budget being $55,000 and go buy a different boat. So you definitely got to check out fuel tanks, transoms and fuel tanks, checking out stringers. Most of the stringers these days are pretty good. Like checking stringers is really more for like older stuff where you've got, wood coring and stuff where it rots. But a lot of the new boats, you don't see as much stringer trouble as you used to. David, what about using non-ethanol gas? Can sitting for a while, will that hurt the engine? So non-ethanol gas is going to have a way higher shelf life than ethanol. I mean, if you use ethanol and you let it sit, you're asking for problems. Even if it's only like 2-3 months, like that could potentially be a problem depending on where you're at and how much ethanol the mix was and other things like that. I would not advise letting ethanol sit. If you're going to use ethanol, burn it. And then letting non-ethanol sit, generally you should treat it if it's going to be more than like 4, 5, 6 months. But non-ethanol is way more durable. So I've seen non-ethanol tanks where someone has untreated non-ethanol fuel, lets it sit for over a year and has no problem. I'm not saying that you should go do that, but I'm saying that it is way more durable because it doesn't break down as ethanol does. So the complications that you're going to have with non-ethanol are going to be way less depending on how long you let the boat sit. I would also even consider, you could do other things like, a fuel additive is going to be number one. You could add a little bit of oil to the fuel. That will help, get everything going. Like if you run a little bit of oil in your fuel and then run that through the engine, as soon as the gas evaporates, all that oil is going to be left inside the fuel system, which is going to help prevent you from having a problem. So stuff like that is, something that you could do. But yeah, do not let ethanol sit. It's not going to hurt anything to let the non-ethanol sit. Again, depending on how long you let it sit. Obviously, you shouldn't let anything sit for more than a year, but, sometimes you have to. And if you are going to let it sit for that long, you need to treat everything, treat the fuel, flush and fog the engine, and put it away clean, and you won't have any problems. Now, if you enjoyed this clip, you can watch the full episode over here, or you can watch another one over here.